Welcome back, warriors. Chen here. Story starts now.
Look, I've been recording official proceedings for the Galactic Senate for 317 cycles. 317. I've seen trade disputes that lasted decades, diplomatic incidents involving 17 different species of aquatic representatives flooding the chamber, and at one time Ambassador Clerks accidentally declared war on his own planet because he sneezed during his speech and hit the wrong translation button. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the day a human walked into the Senate carrying a bag. My name is Vornik, and I'm a Tellurian. We're the bureaucrats of the galaxy, the record keepers, the ones who make sure every single word gets documented for posterity. It's boring work, mostly. Comfortable, safe, until it absolutely isn't. The human's name was Jackson Miller. Just Jackson Miller. Not Heroic Defender Jackson of the Noble House Miller, or Supreme Commander Jackson the Fearless. Just a regular name for what I assumed would be a regular diplomatic visit. The humans had only been part of the galactic community for about 8 standard years, and honestly, most species still treated them like adorable pets who'd somehow stumbled into space travel. Big mistake. Huge. The Senate chamber on Draxis Prime is, well, it's supposed to be intimidating. Massive spiral architecture reaching up into what looks like infinity, holographic displays everywhere showing real-time translations in 4,000 languages, and seats for representatives from every corner of the galaxy. The Vrin Empire occupied the largest section, naturally. They'd been the dominant military power for 6 centuries, and Emperor Thoraxis made absolutely sure everyone remembered it. Thoraxis wasn't just powerful, he was terrifying. 12 feet tall, armored scales that could deflect plasma fire, 4 arms that could crush steel, and a diplomatic strategy that basically boiled down to, agree with me or become a crater. His empire spanned 47 systems, commanded the largest battle fleet in known space, and had never, not once, lost a military engagement. Past tense, had commanded, had never lost. I'm getting ahead of myself. So there I was, tentacles poised over my recording apparatus, ready for what I assumed would be another tedious session about mining rights or trade route regulations. The human delegation was scheduled to present a formal complaint about Vrin incursions into the Terra system. Standard stuff. File a complaint. The Vrin would ignore it. Everyone would pretend this was normal. Session adjourned. Ambassador Kelthron, a Sivathi who'd been running these sessions for longer than I'd been alive, activated his speaking crystal. His voice boomed through the chamber. The Senate recognizes the human delegation from the Sol system. Representative Jackson Miller may approach the speaker's platform. And that's when everything went sideways. Jackson Miller walked in, alone, no security detail, no advisors, no entourage, just one human in what looked like remarkably plain clothing by galactic standards. Dark pants, some kind of jacket, boots that seemed designed for function rather than ceremony. He was carrying a large bag over his shoulder. Canvas material, if my research into human textiles was correct. The kind of bag you'd use for, I don't know, carrying groceries, athletic equipment, definitely not the kind of bag you bring to the Galactic Senate. He walked with this casual confidence that immediately made several of the more paranoid species reach for their defensive shields. Not running, not swaggering, just walking, like he owned the place, like he'd done this 1,000 times before. His eyes scanned the chamber once, twice, and then he smiled. Oh, that smile. I've reviewed the footage approximately 200 times since then. And that smile still gives me the shivers. It wasn't friendly, it wasn't warm, it was the smile of someone who knows exactly what's about to happen and is absolutely delighted about it. Honorable members of the Galactic Senate, he began, his voice surprisingly steady through the translation matrix. I appreciate you taking the time to hear our concerns. I know you're all very busy pretending to care about smaller civilizations while the Vrine Empire does whatever it wants. Dead silence. You could have heard a micro-meteorite drop. Ambassador Kelthron's crystalline skin turned an alarmed shade of purple. Representative Miller, I must remind you that diplomatic protocols require, decorum, respect, all that good stuff, Jackson interrupted, waving one hand dismissively. Here's the thing though, we've been filing complaints for 6 months. 6 whole months. The Vrine have been conducting military operations in our system, seizing civilian vessels, and generally acting like they own the place. And what has this august body done about it? He paused, looking around the chamber expectantly. Several representatives suddenly found their data pads extremely fascinating. That's what I thought. Nothing. Because Emperor Thoraxis and his fleet are big and scary, and most of you would rather hide behind your diplomatic immunity than actually stand up to a bully. Jackson set the bag down on the speaker's platform with a heavy thunk that echoed through the chamber. So we decided to handle this ourselves. Vrin Ambassador Krextal stood up, all four of his arms gesturing aggressively. His translator rendered his words with maximum threat enhancement. You dare insult the Vrin Empire? Your pathetic species should be grateful we haven't sterilized your insignificant planet. Your technology is primitive, your military is laughable, and your audacity in addressing this council with such disrespect will be what? Jackson cut him off, and that smile got wider. See, that's the problem with you guys. You talk too much. Emperor Thoraxis especially. That guy could turn a 5-minute conversation into a 3-hour lecture on Vrin's superiority. It got really old really fast. Got? Past tense? I noticed that immediately, and apparently so did several other representatives. A ripple of confusion spread through the chamber. Krextal's scales flushed with rage. You speak of the Emperor as if he's dead? Jackson reached for the bag. Yeah, funny story about that. What happened next will be analyzed by xenopsychologists for centuries. Jackson Miller opened the bag, reached inside, and pulled out Emperor Thoraxis's head. Not a hologram, not a sculpture, the actual head of the most powerful military leader in the known galaxy. The screaming started immediately. Representatives from 60 different species began shouting, activating emergency protocols, calling for security. The Vrine delegation sat frozen in absolute shock, their translator systems apparently unable to process what they were seeing. I just kept recording. That's what Tellurians do. We record, even when our appendages are shaking so badly we can barely operate the equipment. Jackson held up the head casually, like it was a sporting trophy. Emperor Thoraxis of the Vrin Empire conquered 47 systems, commanded 8,000 warships, personally executed anyone who disagreed with him, really certain that humans were too primitive to be a threat. He paused. He was all those things. Past tense now, obviously. Ambassador Kelthron had turned completely transparent with shock. This is you've started a war. The Vrin fleet will. The Vrin fleet is currently scattered across 12 different systems, wondering why their emperor isn't answering their hails. Jackson interrupted cheerfully. See, we didn't just kill Thoraxis. That would be sloppy. We eliminated his entire command structure, seized control of his flagship, and broadcast his final moments to every Vrin vessel in the fleet. High definition, full surround sound, the works, very dramatic. He set the head down on the podium. Several representatives in the front rows scrambled backward. I couldn't blame them. I was reviewing footage from a safe distance, and I still wanted to run. Here's what you need to understand about humans, Jackson continued, his voice taking on a harder edge. We tried diplomacy. We really did. We filed complaints. We attended meetings. We followed every single one of your bureaucratic protocols. And you all ignored us, because you assumed we were weak, small, primitive. He pulled out a small holographic projector and activated it. Images filled the air above the Senate floor. Battle footage. The Vrin flagship, the Eternal Dominion, burning in space. Vrin command stations exploding. And in the center of it all, Emperor Thoraxis in his throne room, surrounded by human soldiers in advanced combat armor. We're not weak, Jackson said quietly. We're patient. There's a difference. The Vren thought our ships were slow because we didn't have their fancy hyperspace technology. They didn't realize we were studying their systems, learning their weaknesses, planning our approach. They thought our weapons were primitive because we still use kinetic rounds. They didn't factor in that kinetic rounds don't care about energy shields. The footage showed Vrin soldiers in their supposedly impenetrable armor being taken down with ruthless efficiency. Human tactics I'd never seen before. Coordinated strikes that turned the Vrin's numerical advantage into a liability. Your species fights with honor. Krextal finally found his voice, though it cracked with emotion. This is assassination, murder, treachery. Jackson turned to look at him, and I swear the temperature in the chamber dropped 10 degrees. Your empire has conquered 47 civilizations. You've enslaved entire species, destroyed planets that resisted, and committed genocides that make our worst historical atrocities look gentle. And you want to lecture us about honor? He walked toward the Vrin delegation section. Security systems activated immediately, force fields snapping into place, but Jackson just kept walking until he was right up against the barrier. Here's the deal. We tried playing by your rules. It didn't work, so now we're making new rules. The Vryn Empire is finished. Your fleet is scattered and leaderless. Your command structure is gone. Your tributary systems are already declaring independence. And honestly, we're not going to stop them. We're actually going to help them. You cannot, Krextal stammered. The galaxy will not stand for this. The other empires will. Will what? Jackson spread his hands. Defend you, please. Half the species in this chamber have been terrorized by the Vryn for centuries. They're probably celebrating right now. The other half are wondering if they're next. Spoiler alert, you're not, unless you do something really stupid like try to attack Earth. He turned back to address the entire Senate. We're not conquerors. We don't want an empire. We just wanted you to leave us alone and you wouldn't. So we removed the problem, surgically, efficiently. We killed one being, one very specific being, who happened to be responsible for centuries of suffering across multiple star systems, and now he's not a problem anymore. Ambassador Kelthron had recovered enough composure to speak. The council must convene immediately to discuss sanctions, military response. You do that, Jackson said, picking up his bag. While you're talking, we'll be helping former Vryn tributary systems establish their independence. We'll be sharing defensive technology with species that have been pushed around by larger empires. We'll be making sure that the next time someone decides to bully their neighbors, there's a cost, a real cost. He paused at the entrance to the chamber, looking back one last time. Oh, and one more thing. We left Thoraxis's head here as a message. You can mount it wherever you want, return it to the Vryn, whatever. We don't really care. But every time you look at it, remember, humanity tried peace first. We really did. We're not the monsters here, but we're also not the victims. And then he left. Just walked out, alone, carrying an empty bag. While behind him the Galactic Senate dissolved into absolute chaos. I recorded all of it, of course. Every second, every scream, every furious debate about what to do next. It took 6 hours before anyone even approached the podium where Thoraxis's head remained, like some kind of cursed artifact that nobody wanted to touch. The next day, 14 former Vryn tributary systems declared independence. The day after that, the Vryn fleet fractured into 6 competing factions. Within a week, the empire that had dominated galactic politics for 600 years had effectively ceased to exist, and Earth started receiving diplomatic requests from 300 different civilizations. Some wanted alliances, some wanted technology, some wanted reassurance that humans weren't planning to become the next galactic empire. I know because I've been assigned to record all the negotiations. Lucky me. But here's the thing that keeps me up during my rest cycles. Jackson Miller walked into the most secure governmental facility in the known galaxy, carrying the head of the most powerful emperor in recent history, delivered a speech that fundamentally altered galactic power dynamics, and walked out without a single person trying to stop him. Not because we couldn't, because we were all too terrified to try. Turns out humans really are terrifying when you push them too far, and now everyone knows it. I can't wait to see what part 2 of this mess brings. Actually, that's a lie. I absolutely can wait, preferably forever. But knowing humans, forever isn't an option anymore. So remember how I said I was terrified about part 2? Yeah, I was right to be worried. Except it turned out to be terrifying in completely different ways than I expected. Because humans, as I was learning very quickly, don't do anything the way you think they will. 3 weeks after Jackson Miller's dramatic entrance, the Galactic Senate was still in absolute chaos. The Vryn Empire had splintered into 7 different factions now, each one claiming to be the legitimate successor. Former tributary worlds were fighting their own civil wars between independence movements and loyalist holdouts, and every single major power in the galaxy was trying to figure out whether humans were potential allies or the next existential threat. I was still recording everything. Because apparently when you witness the most significant political assassination in galactic history, you get permanently assigned to document the aftermath. My supervisor, a particularly unsympathetic Draxian named Horval, kept saying it was an honor. I kept saying it was a nightmare. We were both right. The Senate had called an emergency session. Topic: addressing the human question. That's actually what they called it on the official agenda. The human question. Like we were trying to solve a math problem, instead of dealing with a species that had just casually decapitated an emperor and walked away whistling. Actually, I don't know if Jackson was whistling, but knowing humans now, he probably was. I arrived at the chamber early, setting up my recording equipment in the usual spot. The energy in the room was completely different from 3 weeks ago. Before, there'd been this comfortable arrogance among the major powers. Now, everyone looked nervous, jumpy, like they were all waiting for another human to walk in with another bag full of surprises. Ambassador Kelthron called the session to order, his crystalline form still showing stress fractures from the previous meeting. The Senate will address the matter of Earth and its recent aggressive diplomatic actions. Aggressive diplomatic actions, that's bureaucrat speak for. They killed someone really important and we have no idea what to do about it. The Savathi Confederacy's representative, Ambassador Thelxis, stood first. She was old, even by Savathi standards, and had survived 4 different galactic wars through sheer diplomatic cunning. I propose immediate economic sanctions against Earth. Their actions constitute an unprovoked act of war against... Unprovoked, the voice came from the entrance, and I swear half the representatives activated personal shield generators immediately. But it wasn't Jackson Miller this time. It was a woman, tall, with dark skin and silver hair pulled back in a tight bun. She wore an actual military uniform, unlike Jackson's casual attire. The insignia on her shoulder identified her as Admiral Patricia Kane, Earth Defense Command. She walked in flanked by 4 security officers, human security officers. In the Galactic Senate, nobody had authorized that. Nobody had even known humans were sending a delegation today. Ambassador Kelthron's voice shook slightly. Admiral Kane, this is a closed session. No, it's a session about us, Patricia interrupted smoothly, taking position at the speaker's platform, right where Jackson had stood, right where Thoraxis's head had sat for 6 hours before someone finally removed it. Which means we get to participate. That's how this works, right? Or do your rules only apply when they're convenient? Thelxis recovered her composure. You murdered Emperor Thoraxis, in cold blood, without warning or declaration of war. Patricia tilted her head slightly. Without warning? Really? We sent 47 formal complaints through official channels. We requested mediation 6 times. We proposed 3 different peaceful resolutions, all ignored. So let me ask you something, Ambassador. How many warnings did the Vryn give the Kelthix people before they sterilized their planet? How about the Traninthanen? The Moxvari? Silence. Because everyone knew the answer. 0 warnings. The Vryn had simply decided those species were inconvenient and eliminated them. That's what I thought, Patricia continued. Look, I understand you're all scared. A new species shows up, displays military capability you didn't know we had, takes out a major threat, and now you're wondering if you're next. I get it, I really do. But here's the thing you need to understand about humans. She activated a holographic display. Images appeared showing Earth's history. Cities, monuments, but also ruins. Devastation. The aftermath of wars that had scarred the planet. We know what it's like to be conquered, enslaved, oppressed. We've done it to each other for thousands of years, and we learned eventually, painfully, that might doesn't make right. That bullies need to be stopped. That standing by while atrocities happen makes you complicit. The images shifted to show Vryn conquests. Planets burning, populations being enslaved, entire civilizations erased. The Vryn Empire was a cancer, and you all knew it. Every single species in this chamber had either been victimized by them or watched them victimize others. And you did nothing, because you were scared, because it was easier to look away, because hey, at least it wasn't happening to you, right? I noticed several representatives shifting uncomfortably. She wasn't wrong. The Vryn had been the galaxy's worst-kept secret. Everyone knew about the atrocities. Nobody wanted to be the one to do something about it. So yes, Patricia said, her voice hardening. We killed Emperor Thoraxis. We dismantled his command structure. We freed 47 systems from tyranny. And we'd do it again, because somebody had to. And apparently we were the only ones willing to pay the cost. A Corveni representative, Ambassador Zillith, rose to speak. The Corveni were pacifists, religiously opposed to violence of any kind. Your actions, however well-intentioned, have destabilized the entire galactic order. The Vryn successor states are at war with each other. Trade routes are disrupted. Millions have died in the resulting chaos. Patricia nodded slowly. You're right, and that's terrible. But you want to know how many beings died under Vryn rule in the last century alone? 2 billion, with a B. So yeah, there's chaos now, there's disruption, there's conflict, but at least now there's also hope. Those tributary worlds have a chance at freedom. Those enslaved populations have a chance at liberation. Is it messy? Absolutely. Is it better than the alternative? We think so. You think so? Xylith's voice rose, which for a Corveni was basically shouting. You've appointed yourselves judge, jury, and executioner for the entire galaxy. Who gave you that right? Nobody, Patricia said simply. We took it. Because rights aren't given, Ambassador. They're taken. They're fought for. They're defended. Your people should understand that better than anyone. Your homeworld was nearly conquered by the Vrine 300 years ago. You survived because the Draxian Alliance intervened. Someone else had to fight for your right to exist. Xylith sat down, unable to formulate a response. Ambassador Kelthron tried to regain control of the session. This debate is unproductive. The fact remains that Earth has demonstrated both capability and willingness to conduct unilateral military action. The Senate must establish protocols. We're not interested in your protocols, Patricia cut him off. We tried protocols. They didn't work. But here's what we are willing to do. We'll share defensive technology with any species that wants it. We'll provide military assistance to worlds threatened by aggressive neighbors. We'll support independence movements in occupied territories. And we'll make absolutely certain that no single empire ever gets powerful enough to become the next Vryn. That's, Kelthron stammered. You're describing a complete restructuring of galactic power dynamics. Patricia smiled. It was somehow even more unsettling than Jackson's smile had been. Yeah, we are. Because the old power dynamics sucked. They enabled tyrants, oppressed the weak, and let bullies run wild. So we're changing them. And if we refuse to cooperate, Thelxis demanded, then you refuse. We're not going to force you. That's the difference between us and the Vryn. We actually mean it when we talk about freedom and self-determination. But fair warning, the galaxy is changing whether you participate or not. You can help shape that change, or you can get swept up in it. Your choice. One of the human security officers stepped forward and whispered something to Patricia. She nodded, then addressed the Senate again. I'm told we have a situation developing that you all need to be aware of. Commander Briggs, if you would. Another human entered the chamber. Young, maybe 30 years old by their standards, wearing tactical gear that looked far more advanced than anything I'd seen before. He activated a new holographic display. 16 hours ago, Commander Briggs began. The Krellian Dominion launched an invasion of the Ythari system. 300 warships, full orbital bombardment, the works. Standard Krellian expansion playbook. They've been doing this for decades, and the Senate's response has always been strongly worded condemnations and absolutely zero action. More images appeared. A beautiful blue-green planet under attack. Cities burning. Orbital defenses collapsing. And then something new. Human ships emerging from faster-than-light travel. Not many, maybe 20 vessels. We arrived 4 hours ago, Briggs continued, engaged the Krellian fleet. Destroyed or disabled 80% of their invasion force. The rest retreated. Ythari is safe. Total human casualties? 0. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouting over each other, demanding explanations, calling for sanctions, praising the intervention. Complete pandemonium. Patricia waited for the noise to die down. The Krellian Dominion is the 4th largest military power in the galaxy. Was. Past tense now. Their fleet is crippled. Their expansion plans are finished. And before anyone asks, yes, we're willing to do the same thing to any other empire that decides conquest is an acceptable foreign policy. This is madness, Ambassador Thelxis shouted. You cannot police the entire galaxy. Watch us, Patricia replied calmly. We've got another 12 operations planned for the next month. The Voxian hegemony's slave markets. Shutting them down. The Xanthari warlords raiding civilian shipping. Done. The Pevnari corporate authority forcing entire populations into indentured servitude? Not anymore. We've made a list, we're checking it twice, and we're going to find out who's been naughty or nice. I couldn't help it. I made a choking sound that my translator rendered as laughter. Several representatives turned to glare at me. Patricia caught my eye and winked. Actually winked. Here's our proposal, she continued. We establish a new council, the Galactic Defense Initiative. Membership is voluntary. Purpose is simple. Protect species that can't protect themselves. Respond to aggression. Prevent future empires from becoming the next Vryn. No tribute, no subjugation, no expansion, just defense. And who controls this initiative? Kelthron asked suspiciously. Nobody controls it. It's cooperative. Equal representation for all members. Decisions made by majority vote. We provide the military backbone until other species can build up their own defensive capabilities. Then we share responsibility. It sounded good. Too good. and I could see the skepticism on faces throughout the chamber. Patricia seemed to read the room. I know what you're thinking. This is a trick. We're going to use this initiative to build our own empire. Why should you trust us? She paused. You shouldn't. Trust is earned, not given. So here's what we're going to do. Every operation we conduct we'll broadcast publicly. Full transparency. You'll know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're doing it. You'll have access to our technology, our tactics, everything. If we start acting like the Vrin, you'll know immediately, and you can act accordingly. And what's to stop us from acting against you now? Thelks is challenged. Patricia's smile faded. Nothing. You're absolutely free to try. But ask yourself this. We took down the Vren Empire in a single coordinated strike. We disabled the Krellian invasion fleet in 4 hours. If we wanted to conquer the galaxy, would we be here talking, or would we just do it? The silence that followed was deafening. We don't want an empire, Patricia said quietly. We want peace, real peace, not the false peace of everyone being too scared to fight back against bullies. We want a galaxy where smaller species don't have to live in fear, where aggressive expansion has consequences, where right matters more than might. Ambassador Kelthron looked around the chamber. The Senate will need time to consider. Take all the time you need, Patricia interrupted. While you're considering, we'll be saving lives, stopping invasions, freeing slaves. You can join us when you're ready, or not. Like I said, it's voluntary. She turned to leave, her security detail falling in behind her, but she stopped at the entrance and looked back. Oh, one more thing. Jackson asked me to tell you something. He said to say, we're not the heroes of this story. We're just the people who showed up. The real heroes are the Yathari defending their homes, the Celtic survivors rebuilding their civilization, the tributary worlds claiming their independence. We're just removing obstacles. They're doing the hard work of building something better. And then she left, just like Jackson had, leaving behind a chamber full of stunned representatives and one very overwhelmed Tellurian recorder. The debates lasted for 3 days. Some species immediately applied to join the Galactic Defense Initiative. Others condemned it as human imperialism. Most just waited to see what would happen next. What happened next was that humanity kept its word. Every operation was broadcast publicly. Former Vrin worlds received defensive technology and training. Aggressive empires found their expansion plans meeting unexpected resistance. And slowly, painfully, the galaxy started to change. I'm still recording it all. Every session, every debate, every speech. It's still terrifying, but now it's also, maybe, possibly, a little bit hopeful. Because humans walked into the Galactic Senate and changed everything. Not with diplomacy, not with appeasement, but with action, with conviction, with a willingness to do what was necessary, even when it was hard. And that head, the one Jackson dropped on the podium, they mounted it in the Senate archives as a reminder, not of human brutality, but of the cost of inaction, of what happens when good beings stand by and do nothing while evil flourishes. I look at it sometimes during my breaks. Emperor Thoraxis, frozen in an expression of absolute shock, still can't quite believe that someone actually stopped him. Welcome to the new galaxy, where might doesn't make right anymore, where bullies face consequences, where even the smallest species has allies willing to fight for them. It's messy, it's complicated, it's scary, but it beats the alternative. And if another empire gets any bright ideas about conquest, well, there's probably a human somewhere making a list. And I really don't want to see what they'll drop on the Senate floor next time. Actually, that's still a lie. Part of me absolutely wants to see it. The rest of me wants to retire to a peaceful colony world and never think about galactic politics again. Guess which part is winning? Yeah, I'm still here, still recording, still watching humans casually reshape the galaxy while the rest of us scramble to keep up. Turns out the most terrifying thing about humans isn't their military capability. It's their absolute certainty that they're doing the right thing. And the really scary part? They might actually be correct.
So that how humanity changed the galaxy forever. Not with empty promises or endless debates, but with action. They walked in, dropped ahead and rewrote the rules. The question is, what will they do next? Subscribe to find out, because humans always have another surprising waiting.